CVS agreeing to pay about $5 billion over the next 10 years to settle outstanding state, local, and tribal opioid litigation. Bloomberg reporting that it's part of a tentative $12 billion global settlement that includes Walgreens and Walmart. Last August, a federal judge ordered the three, they're the largest pharmacies in the country, to pay a $650 million in damages in a suit brought by two Ohio counties.
Turns out that major chain pharmacies will be paying a settlement. It's not completely finalized, but it appears that this is likely going to be the outcome. And it's due to the fact that the executives over at these big chain pharmacies were warned over and over again by the pharmacists working there that, hey, we should question some of these prescriptions. It looks like we're dispensing quite a few painkillers here that could be leading to or helping to fuel the opioid epidemic. And clearly the executives, according to these trials, did not listen. So let's give you some more details on this. CVS Health Corp, Walgreens, Boots Alliance Inc., and Walmart Inc. have agreed to pay about $13.8 billion to resolve thousands of US state, local, and tribal government lawsuits accusing the pharmacy chains of mishandling opioid painkillers. Now, when you look at how much each one of these companies will pay in the settlement, and then you consider how much the opioid crisis has cost the United States government, you'll get a better sense of how this is nonsense. I'm just gonna say it. Because these are companies that made a tremendous amount of profit by dispensing these opioids, dispensing these painkillers, fueling the opioid epidemic, fueling the overdose deaths that the country is still grappling with today. They made a ton of money off all of that. And while they privatized those gains, we socialized the losses to the tune of $1.7 trillion. So I'll get to those numbers in a moment, but CVS said Wednesday that it had agreed to pay about $5 billion over 10 years. It's nothing, it's chump change for them. And Walgreens disclosed in a filing with the US Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC, that it had agreed to pay about $5.7 billion over 15 years. Neither company, though, admitted any wrongdoing. Walmart has agreed to pay $3.1 billion, mostly upfront, according to two people familiar with the matter. The proposed settlement, which would be the first nationwide deal with retail pharmacy companies, follows nationwide opioid settlements with the drug makers and distributors, which totaled more than $33 billion. Previous settlements netted $21 billion. From the three largest US drug distributors, $5 billion from Johnson & Johnson, $4.35 billion from Teva Pharmaceutical Industries, and $2.37 billion from AbbVie, and $450 million from Endo International. Now, the evidence presented during the trials were telling. So my sense is they wanted the trials to stop and they just agreed to a settlement, even though honestly they got a better part of the deal, because again, when you think about the profits they made, this is really a slap on the wrist. And when you compare it to how much we, the US taxpayers, have had to pay in response to this crisis, again, you'll get a better sense of how we're really the ones who got screwed at the end of the day. But I do want to go to this video because it talks about some of the evidence that was presented during the trial.
Documents from CVS and Walgreens have been entered into the record that suggest that employees of these pharmacy chains were saying to corporate executives, look, we're worried by what we're seeing. We're not sure that we're doing enough. We think that some orders are coming in that could wind up with these powerful addictive pills being diverted and abused. And I should say that NPR's own investigative reporting has found pharmacists at Walmart in particular who say over and over, we tried to reach out to corporate executives. We tried to warn them that this was going wrong and we were silenced or we were ignored.
So when I first read about how these pharmacies were dealing with these trials, I was like, I don't know if it's really the pharmacy's fault, right? I mean, you've got, yes, the pill mill pharmacies that are dispensing these drugs without really double checking to make sure that the prescriptions are, accurate, they're not fraudulent. Like that was an issue. But I mean, my experience with CVS, for instance, they get the prescription from the doctor. If they ever have any questions, they hit up the doctor to make sure the prescription's real. And I feel like they go above and beyond in making sure that there isn't anything questionable going on. But no, what was transpiring was in some cases, right? These pharmacies the pharmacists working at the pharmacies looked at these prescriptions, realized that they were ordering and dispensing an insane amount of opioid drugs. And they said, well, this is a red flag. And once they reached out to the corporate executives to say that there's something up and maybe we should, kind of evaluate the situation to ensure that we're not assisting in fueling this opioid epidemic, based on the evidence shown in the trials, no, I mean, the executives didn't want to do a damn thing about it because it was helping their bottom line. So let's now talk a little bit about what the opioid epidemic has caused in this country. As many as 100,000 people died of drug overdoses last year alone, 2021. Not all of those overdoses were due to prescription painkillers, but the vast majority of them were due to opioids, both synthetic opioids and prescription opioids as well. So fentanyl took up the bulk of the overdose deaths last year, and it continues to be a huge problem. And if you look at how much it's costing our government to respond to this crisis, you'll get a sense of how these settlements are nowhere near enough. A congressional report just last month put the economic toll of the opioid crisis in 2020 alone at $1.5 trillion. Just let that sink in for 1 second. 1.5, this is according to Reuters. This isn't some random publication. And it's based on a congressional report put out last month. The US government spent $1.5 trillion in response to the ongoing and ever expanding opioid epidemic last year alone. 2 years ago, actually, 2020. Cases are still pending against smaller, more regionally focused pharmacy operators, including Rite Aid and Kroger. Unfortunately, overdoses have continued to shoot up during the pandemic. No pun intended there, I apologize. Overdoses involving opioids, including prescription drugs and heroin, surged further during the COVID-19 pandemic, increasing 38% in 2020 over the previous year, and another 15% in 2021, according to the US Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Now, what will happen with that money that these companies have agreed to pay through these settlements? Well, various states want to invest that money in drug rehabilitation programs and efforts to respond to the ongoing epidemic. But again, I mean, considering how much we're already spending, this settlement money is barely even a drop in the bucket. The fact that we can have corporations engage in profit-seeking behaviors, knowing full well that it's going to lead to the deaths of hundreds of thousands of Americans per year, and just kind of get away with it with a little slap on the wrist. It tells you everything you need to know about how this country and the way it functions puts profits over literal human lives. So I don't want to hear a damn person talk to me about how we need to strip women of their bodily autonomy and their reproductive rights because they care about human life so much when it comes to zygotes and fetuses. Fact of the matter is, not a damn person in Congress, not a damn politician genuinely cares about human lives if they can sit back and stomach the garbage that we see time and time again with these corporations preying on our fellow Americans just to turn a profit, and then they get no punishment in the end, or barely any punishment. I'm just fed up with this garbage, man. It's just endless.